Section 2. The Fall of Lucifer and the War of the Angels. The creation of the celestial hosts and their splendor. Drawn into the primal mystery of pretemporal glory, Saint Hildegard of Bingen was granted a vision of the first created beings, the angels. Before the earth existed, before time had unfurled its sequence, she beheld the celestial hosts, radiant spirits born not through gestation or labor, but summoned into existence in a single eternal act by the breath of the Almighty. They were not dim shadows or impersonal forces. They were living flames, each unique, each reflecting a different brilliance from the divine mind. As sparks from a furnace, each carry their own shape and glow. She saw them ordered in grandeur and purity, formed in choirs and ranks that surpassed all earthly imagination. Their garments were not woven but formed of praise. Their crowns were not of gold but of humility. They existed for a single purpose, the glorification of God and absolute freedom. Though spiritual in nature, they were not devoid of will. Each angel possessed intellect, agency, and the capacity to love or to turn away from love. In their origin, there was only joy. They stood before God not as slaves, but as mirrors, each one an expression of divine beauty, wisdom, and power. Their song was unbroken. Their light did not cast shadow. Their movements were fluid acts of devotion, as if even their silence exhaled praise. Lucifer, the rise and collapse of the morning star. Among these countless hosts stood one being who outshone the rest, Lucifer, the bearer of light. Hildegard saw him as the most radiant creature ever formed, robed in celestial sapphire, crowned with fire, his voice echoing like 1,000 trumpets in unison. He stood not in pride at first, but in appointed majesty, a guardian of divine mysteries, a prince among the angelic order. But within this pinnacle of splendor, something stirred. Lucifer, beholding the magnificence reflected in himself, allowed admiration to turn inward. He ceased to gaze upon the source and instead turned toward his own image. The light he bore ceased to be an offering and became a possession. He desired not only to reflect, but to replace. He looked into the mirror of his being and mistook it for a throne. Hildegard saw the moment of his fall not as a violent rupture, but as a decision, silent, inward, irreversible. He did not speak aloud at first, but conceived within his will the desire to ascend beyond the boundaries of love. He said in spirit, "I will rise above the stars. I will be as the Most High." And in that moment, the light within him began to contort. What had been beauty turned grotesque. What had been music became static. What had been praise became rebellion. Around him, a third of the angels, dazzled by his magnificence, followed him. They mistook his self-will for strength. They believed his counterfeit glory to be the true light. And thus began the first war, not of matter, but of will. Not with swords of iron, but with the very fabric of being. The war in heaven and the sword of righteousness. Hildegard was shown the instant this rebellion became known in heaven. A thunder that had no sound shook the heights. From the midst of the divine throne, the command of God rang out, not in wrathful panic, but in righteous judgment. And from among the loyal hosts rose a champion, Michael, the Archangel, whose very name became a war cry. Who is like unto God? She saw him rise not in anger, but in holy radiance. He did not burn with hatred, but with unwavering loyalty. Behind him followed the faithful angels, their banners not of conquest, but of justice. What followed was not chaos, but the precise and irresistible motion of divine order reasserting itself. Lucifer and his followers were cast down, not gently, but in a torrent of spiritual force. Hildegard saw their descent not as a simple fall, but as an unraveling. Their brightness collapsed inward. Their names were stripped. Their music dissolved into shrieks. They fell like collapsing stars, hurled from the heights into the abyss, an unfathomable realm that would become the place of exile, punishment, and torment. The heavens, once adorned with their presence, shuddered with the memory. But peace returned, not fragile peace, but triumphant. The choir was smaller but purer. The light was more refined. The hierarchy stood sealed, tested by loyalty, confirmed by fire.